Yeah, the children are very happy that we are going to adjust the buses. But they are taking up from where Matiangi left. Before Matiangi, we did not have buses in one color, school buses. Now that we have them, they want signage. Who should do this? This is schools again. So do we give that to police officers a bit? Somebody says city council, but I think it's police officers and education. And we have education at the county level, although that is for nursery school, but again at the national level. So I can see there is a lot for Professor Magoha, and I'll let him know. I'll make a copy and give him. I want to play to the children. Number 6, we want the government to be closing some of the roads to allow children to have fun. We can skate, cycle, walk freely, or play baseball. This will help to reduce diseases like obesity. Now, children, allow me not to take this somewhere. Now, I will not want my children kulima, kuchunga ng'ombe. Allow me to take this to the governors and to say in every city and in every town, let's have the playgrounds preserved. See, we want to play. So we need those playgrounds. Let's not close the roads, eh? Yes. Yeah. So we are not going to get the ministry to approve schools where there is no playground. And Majevda, please just say we want them preserved. The grabbed ones, Archbishop will help you to get them back. Finally, please enforce traffic rules to reduce number of accidents on children. Every day children die as they cross the roads. Now, this one squarely lies with our, not prisons, but our police. And I can tell you, I'll share this with the IG. Have I now finished? Thank you very much. I'll do as you want. I'm going to make enough copies. Remember, I'm giving this to Honorable Sonko, Nairobi. I'm giving this to Professor Magoha. I'm giving this to Mr. Mutiambai, the IG. And I'm giving this also to NTSA. Is that okay? Because I am the police out of the National Police Service. I'll police for you. And known to all of us, the National Gender and Equality Commission, one of the special interest groups is children. So when they give me this, I take it very seriously. These are the people who have employed me, and therefore I have to obey. So I oblige. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair, for obliging to our little children. Indeed, I just want to mention that these children belong to the Kenya Children's Association, and the chairperson was here. Musioka is here, right? Musioka, thank you so much for leading the delegation of children who are here. I want to convey apologies from Honorable Passaris. She would have loved to be here, but she was held up by other commitments. She welcomes all to Nairobi, and she's committed to the welfare and to the issue of inclusive transport. Also with us, we have DJ Ignatius. He's the only DJ with disability. DJ Ignatius, where are you? Yes. Ah, DJ Ignatius, right? Asante sana. Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you so much for making time and joining us here today. We really appreciate your presence here. Now, we want to take this chance to invite, we are going to a very special session where we are having remarks by Honorable Mike Mbuvi Sonko, the Governor of Nairobi County, who is represented by Honorable Hitansi Majevdia. Majevdia is the County Executive Member and Minister for Roads, Public Works and Transport, Nairobi City County. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Betty. Mr. Chris Sabure, the chairperson, NGEC. Yeah, that's right. I only knew it as NGEC. I never knew it was, you were calling it NGEC. So I was pronouncing it right. Okay, the MPs, commissioners, all protocols observed. Before I read the speech, I want to copy what my, should I call you sister or mother? Sister, 36. I'm younger. That's what I was going to say. You advertised your age, I want to advertise mine. I'm only 18. But my twins, I have two sons, they're 19. So when they ask me, "Well, Dad, what's your age?" I say, I'm 18. Okay. All that you said, you don't see walkways, you don't see lights for pedestrians to cross, cycling tracks. I think Honorable Danita, she said she lived in New York. Please come to Luthuli Avenue next week. In collaboration with UN Habitat, I saw the UN Habitat here. You will see a transformation of that street. We are working 24 hours from today. In fact, I'm from there. I walked from there to here for this function. Luthuli Avenue will be a model street during the UN Habitat Assembly. So come and see what we are doing there. Then tell me if you're in Nairobi or you're in New York. That's a model street we are doing. So please, Mr. Bure, I think also you know, and all of you should come and see what we have done. And we want to multiply it, not only in Nairobi, we want other counties also to come and see what we have done. So that week of the UN Habitat conference, from 26th to 30th, it will be fully operational, but the work starts today. We are working 24 hours to transform that street because we have only 5-6 days, yeah? The lights, somebody mentioned, for people, for children or people to cross, people with disabilities, already we have installed those lights as a pilot project. After I took over, we have put about 10 lights. One is exactly opposite the Parliament building. One is opposite Governor's office. So it's not operational as yet, but should be operational before the UN Habitat. Okay? So you can also go and try. In fact, all the NGEC members or the PWDs must go and try it and give us a feedback. This is wrong, this is right, or what are the suggestions you have? Please tell us. If you tell us, we can change. If you don't, we can't. I forgot to give a special mention also to Honorable Tim Mwanyonyi. He's also my MP. So, Chairman, you are not alone. He's also my MP. And we work very closely in his constituency. I've done so many roads after I came, you've seen, in collaboration, not only in Nairobi, in my constituency, but all over Nairobi. You can see many roads are under construction now. 84 roads. I'm only 1 month old. 84 roads are under construction as I talk. Okay? So now let me read the official speech. Oh, one more point I want to mention about the children who complained. There was an incident on Monday, if you watched news, there were children who demonstrated St. Teresa's in Isli, Pangani. There was an injury. So in the morning, I was woken up by my governor. He says, these children are making noise outside St. Teresa's. They want a bump. They want bumps. So can you go there before you come to the office? So I went there. And generally, you know, government works slow. But I'm from private sector. I am very impatient. Before one, I had bumps on outside the school. So you can go, when you drive outside St. Teresa's, those bumps were done before 1 p.m. Okay? So on Monday, they reported the children were screaming and shouting, that even the local residents. On Tuesday night, there was positive news that this thing is done. So we need to know the hot spots because we can't put bumps everywhere. I think you understand we should also look at the rights of motorists. But yes, where there are black spots or spots where there have been reported accidents, we will take immediate action. In fact, you know how Governor is for PWDs, Sikh, and the children. He has a soft spot. He can be very harsh on us or on the county staff, but when it comes to children and PWD or people without financial ability, you know how generous he is. So we assure you, where there are such cases, we will take immediate action. When I say immediate, same day. I'm promising that same day where there are hotspots for accidents outside schools. Even the bus stop at St. Teresa is moving. The children also said they don't want those matatu stages, but we have to do in collaboration with national government because that is a national government road. So we are already talking, and that bus stop will be shifted away from the school. And I hope it will be done very fast with Mr. Obure's cooperation. I think I've talked enough. Let me read the governor's speech. All protocols observed. There is a great diversity of needs among persons living with disabilities. Specific impairment may be linked to a physical, hearing, speech, visual, or cognitive condition. And the reality is that almost everyone will face temporary or permanent disability at some point in life. This can be caused by a number of factors, ranging from disease, old age, to accidents. In all areas of life, personal mobility and accessibility allow people to reach and benefit from their environment. Regrettably, many obstacles and barriers to indoor and outdoor public facilities and buildings prevent equal access by persons living with disabilities as well as people who are not disabled but have limited mobility or physical challenges, including the elderly, children, and pregnant women. In transportation, poorly accessible transport systems, infrastructure, and vehicle designs, as well as lack of accessible information to passengers, hinder accessibility. This form of exclusion increases the costs associated with disability, and people who are denied access to essential transport services tend to face greater challenges to stay out of or exit poverty. It is in this realization that Nairobi City County Government has been removing obstacles that hinder universal access, especially on road crossing points within the city, and ensuring that there is universal access on all new building approvals. Somebody mentioned this. Just for your information, if you see the new buildings, they match what you want. There is all these disabled facilities, ramps, even the parkings have that. Yeah? The county is also installing pedestrian-only traffic lights, the ones I mentioned, on major crossing points in the city. The pedestrian light systems incorporate audible walk indications and detectable surfacing for the visually impaired and lowered curb at crossing points for the physically challenged. I think the governor needs a clap here. However, the concept of accessibility reaches full capacity when the social model ceases to be oriented at the periodic removal of obstacles for people with reduced mobility and takes on a new approach of diversity in the broader sense, with a model of action in which the city is planned, organized, and managed transversely, considering the diversity of the citizens, where the concept of equality of opportunities and design for all prevails. Universal mobility should be a system of partnerships and/or policies that provide minimum levels of mobility to all members of society. An isolated, static population is unhealthy, unproductive, and unhappy. A mobile population is economically, culturally, and socially dynamic. Statistics indicates that about 40% of Nairobians walk to their destinations, and only 20% use private vehicles, with the rest using public transport. In view of the above, Nairobi NMT policy was adopted in 2017. Thus, there is a renewed energy in Nairobi to provide NMT facilities as a substantial urban mobility mode accessible to all. It is with this in mind that the county has undertaken several projects geared towards offering sustainable mobility alternatives for Nairobians. Several projects in areas like Mathare North, Babadogo, Parklands, Eastlands and the CBD are ongoing. A lot more budget has been earmarked in the next financial year to go to NMT facilities. To enhance universal mobility, the Bus Rapid Transport Line 3, BRT 3, from Dandora to KNH, designs are also complete. The designs have ensured that the bus stations are accessible with ease by all users, with level entry into buses with the elimination of steps. Are you happy, Chairman? The county is also endeavoring to include the citizens in its decision-making process on mobility issues, and we have been involving the users when major changes are about to be done on the functionality of the streets. A case in point is the proposed pedestrianization of Luthuli Avenue, the one I talked of, yeah, where several urban dialogues with the road users have been held, including a placemaking a week. Ladies and gentlemen, Nairobi is committed to ensuring all Nairobians, regardless of their socio-economic status or physical status, is able to access all places of their choice with ease. We are in the process of coming up with the Nairobi transport policy and land use plan that is to guide the development of Nairobi on transport matters. Also, the Nairobi Traffic Management Bill is at the review stage and will be aligned to ensure universal mobility is achievable for all Nairobians. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. We do appreciate, again, another round of applause. We appreciate the speech by Honorable Mike Mbuvi Soko, the Governor for Nairobi County, read by Honorable Hitansi Majevdea. And we now want to move to the keynote address part. We all appreciate we have our Chief Administrative Secretary, Honorable Christopher M. Obure, as our chief guest today. And I will invite our chairperson to take over this session. Karibu, Chair.
Good afternoon. My CEO, who is the CS and not a cabinet secretary, has requested me to request all of us to be upstanding. I was told all of us to be upstanding. Then I did not ask that other question because I realized when I was dancing, even the people on wheelchair they were dancing, so they are able to stand. Why did we want to stand? Because we wanted to stretch. Just stretch in your own special way. Even if you are on wheelchair, stretch in your own special way to remain alert as we hear what our chief guest has to give us. Thank you very much. Get seated. I know you have been sitting for long. And again, I want to repeat, the person who is about to speak to us, as I was talking to the cabinet secretary, Masharia told me, the cabinet secretary, I'm going to give you somebody who is very, very experienced. And I started by telling you he has worked with 3 heads of state. He knows what it is like to be in the village. Grew up in a small village. I don't want to name the place. He told me not to say. But after growing up in the village and going to school and going to the one and only university where I went, then he realized Nairobi was a good place. So he went and campaigned very hard, and he won, and he became an MP. Then somebody looked and said, no, this is not just an MP. This is a brilliant young man. So he has served in those places they call, you become a minister. You know, the minister is the highest. Then when there came this other one, you know, it wasn't there before. We used to have assistant ministers. Now, when he heard there was another one, CAS, he said, I will also serve in this one. And His Excellency the President heard and gave him that appointment We are proud of you, sir. We now want to welcome you so that you can address us, remembering you are the one person who takes care of transport, infrastructure, housing, public works. So all these matters are in your docket. And I'm sure you are advising not only the PS, but you are also advising our cabinet secretary on what should be done. You have heard it all, but I know there is that special punchline that you were given to share with us. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let us put our hands together and give a round of applause to our chief guest. Hey. This one was not loud enough, so I want to request my one and only Honorable Mheshimiwa to come here and assist me. Awaku clap very hard. They need a politician to help. And I'm asking, not 001, Honorable Priscilla Nyokavi, who is one of my commissioners. Please, Honorable Mheshimiwa, we want to clap for our chief guest as he stands here. Yes.
He was a footballer, I'm told. For us from the NGEC, we have a special clap that we give guests. So NGEC and all of us, stretch your hands, stretch your hands, stretch your hands. Give a wide smile, wide smile, wide smile, wide smile, wide smile. And then angusha.
You're coming. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for this very good reception. And I must say you've been very kind to me. And I also want to say it's been a wonderful setting for this very important occasion. Extremely well attended. The venue is perfect, and indeed, great speeches have been made by those who had the opportunity to do so. I also want to say that I am here, I'm standing in for the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. James Macharia, who was invited to be the guest of honor at this launch. Unfortunately, the Cabinet Secretary was not able to make it, and therefore he has not been able to join us. However, I feel I am duty-bound to convey his greetings and best wishes on the occasion of these on the occasion of the launch of this initiative. Therefore, he wishes you well, and he assures all of you of his support for this program. I am accompanied here by one of our senior members of staff, Engineer Francis Gitau, right there. Mr. Francis Gitau is the Secretary for Infrastructure in the State Department of Infrastructure. But right now I know he's been assigned special duties to prepare for the commissioning of Namata, hopefully in a few months. He's also responsible for all the work that is necessary, the preparatory work necessary for the introduction of the bus rapid transit, hopefully soon. And I know I have been challenged by a number of people, and I want to declare that when I was young, I was a football player. and I played for Gor Mahia Football Club and the national team. I was also, during that time, I was the secretary, KFL, Kenya Football League, and in that capacity, I helped to write the first constitution of Kenya Football Federation, of which I became chairman in the early 80s for a few, in a caretaker capacity. And therefore, my declaration is to the effect that I have a deep interest in football, in promotion of local football, that is, and I'm a fan of, English Premier League. Unfortunately, I support Chelsea. I don't know what you support. Yeah. So I also want to say that while I was seated here, I noticed that on this side, there is seated a young man who is physically challenged. But despite that challenge, he is a brilliant lawyer, and he is in fact my lawyer. I'm very proud to see him seated in this crowd. And so I know that in this gathering, there are many people who may be physically challenged, but who have great potential and who have great capacities in their respective areas of operation. I want to assure you that I have sat and listened very carefully to what has been said by those who spoke earlier. I have also listened to the petition by the children, the proposals they are making. I know that there are limitations. The chairperson has specifically requested that we address issues, policy issues pertaining to people with vulnerable groups in our society. They have talked about challenges people face at the airport, not just the airport in Nairobi, but other airports and airstrips around the country. They've spoken about challenges on our highways, and the people are, desire to see some of those challenges addressed for the benefit of the community generally, and more specifically those who are physically challenged. We're talking about access to public buildings, and so on and so on. I want to assure you that we have taken careful note of the various proposals made, the various requests made, and I will raise this with my colleagues. I will raise this with our boss, the Cabinet Secretary, and we will start addressing it. We are already doing so, but we will continue to fast track some of these policies. And so now you will allow me to take this opportunity to deliver the message for this occasion. And I want to recognize those present, the representative of His Excellency the Governor of Nairobi, Governor Mike Sonko, representatives of the various county governments within the Nairobi metropolitan area, our chairperson, Dr. Joyce Mutinda of the National Gender and Equality Commission, commissioners of the National Gender Equality Commission, chairs of other constitutional commissions and independent officers present in this meeting, my colleagues, my former colleagues in Parliament, and I'm very delighted that they were able to come and grace this occasion, and the very wonderful speeches they've been able to deliver. Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi, member for Westlands, who also happens to be my member of parliament. Now, Honorable Danida Gatti, from the countryside where I come from. Honorable David Olesankori, Sankoki, sorry, 001 in the National Assembly. Honorable, my old friend, Honorable Kopio, member for Muhoroni, member for Muhoroni. We've been together for many, many years in many, many aspects of life. The representative of UN Habitat, representative of the National Transport and Safety Authority, representatives of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Amjambo nyote. Amjambo tena. It's my pleasure to address you this morning as we launch the Access to Mobility project, which seeks to promote universal access to public transport in Kenya. As a government, we welcome proactive measures from stakeholders in advancing better transport and infrastructure facilities in our country. This project is timely as it coincides with the government's ambitious plan to roll out bus rapid transport services, commonly referred to as BRT, within the Nairobi metropolis. According to a study in the Institute, by the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, bus rapid transit has risen to the task of providing high-quality transport, particularly during the past decade, in which BRT has grown by 383% in cities around the globe. The system accomplishes this through a combination of features, among them segregated bus lanes, off-board fare collection, level boarding, bus priority at intersections, and other quality of service elements such as information technology and effective branding. The bus rapid transit systems can significantly improve accessibility for physically, economically, and socially disadvantaged people. However, success depends on critical details, such as the ease with which people with impairments can access stations and the size of the gap between platforms and buses. This requires a comprehensive planning process that involves people with disabilities at every stage. These improvements can benefit everybody, not just people with disabilities. The rollout of BRT must involve intensive sensitization and education programs for all types of clients, including children, youth, general commuters and public, owners of private vehicles, the border riders, the hawkers, small vendors, and indeed all actors in the public transport systems. Ladies and gentlemen, this forum provides an opportunity for all stakeholders in the transport sector to engage and share insights on how to ensure our urban transport is accessible for use by all. I am happy to report that in the coming months, we shall launch the first ever bus rapid transit service within the Nairobi metropolis. Already a demonstration bus has been imported to provide confidence that the government is committed in the transformation agenda of the public mass transport in the Nairobi metropolitan area. The BRT service is meant to ease congestion and enhance mobility for all. Key highlights of the BRT include enhanced access that will, for example, allow wheelchairs to be used to board the bus through an automated ramp. It also has a wheelchair dedicated seat and features priority seating for elderly, sick, and expectant mothers. Ladies and gentlemen, comparative studies undertaken in countries where BRT is being implemented have revealed valuable lessons, especially to policymakers. Poor design, lacks personnel training, and inadequate maintenance can create unnecessary and unfair barriers. These may result to human rights violations and discrimination of vulnerable groups such as persons with disabilities, children, pregnant and lactating women, and older members of society. Accessibility is a process which requires good design, ongoing professional training of staff, ongoing maintenance of equipment, and good communication systems and strategies to cater for customers and the wider community. Accessibility comprises an entire trip chain, each link of which must be accessible. It is critical for universal access planning to ensure that persons with disabilities do not encounter unexpected barriers that hinder the ability to access public transport and other destinations. I am delighted to note that the Ministry recognizes the larger context, particularly the quality of access to the proposed BRT infrastructure. I note with appreciation that government agencies such as the Kenya Institute of Special Education have already embraced the concept of universal access. I am also aware of undivided goodwill from private investors supportive of inclusive transport. I applaud Matatu SACCOs, drivers and crew, as well as the public who have embraced inclusive urban transport. Without you, persons with disabilities and elderly people would neither contribute to the development of the economy of our Nairobi city nor enjoy the hospitality the city offers. They would literally get stranded moving from one place to another. Further, without you, our children would not freely and easily access schools. Ladies and gentlemen, as we shepherd the transition of the transport sector to BRT, we are keen to incorporate best industry practices by giving priority to companies that integrate existing operators and establish an employment framework that provides incentives for retention of existing staff. I wish to assure all stakeholders involved that the government is willing to listen and incorporate views and suggestions that will help us transform our transport sector and provide a truly universal mobility for all. We count on your support. As I conclude, I call upon the National Gender and Equality Commission through this project to take the leadership of giving our ministry the necessary advisories for improving transport, particularly as it relates to vulnerable groups. I encourage you to audit our urban transport system and make practicable recommendations that the ministry and the county governments would use to accelerate integration of principles of equality and inclusion in our transport sector. Finally, and as we all know, every journey starts with one step, and we have already started ours towards sustainable, inclusive transport system. As we are designing and implementing projects, we have to place ourselves in the shoes of the vulnerable users to ensure that we've delivered something that is desirable for all. For us in the government, we are ready to collaborate with all those who advocate for equality and equity in the utilization of transport infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, with all these many remarks, I now declare this project officially launched for execution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our chief guests. Thank you very much for launching this project officially. We indeed have a publication which would like you to also officially launch for this project. And I'll call upon Winnie and the band kindly just play one stanza as we get our chief guests, the commissioners, and our other VIPs to the front to have this project document launched. Kindly, the band. Prisons band, please, another stanza. Thank you. So there we have it. Our chief guest has officially launched with the publication this project. He's flanked by members of parliament who are present in this occasion. We have our chairperson leading the delegation of guests, accompanied by her commissioners, the vice chairperson, Dr. Chomba Munyi, Honorable Priscilla Nyokafi. Photography still going on. Photography still going on. Yeah, photography is still going on. And I now want to call upon the chief guests, together with the commissioners and the members of parliament present. Kindly, if you can sit where the crowd is, where the audience has been, because we're going to have a short panel discussion, which will run for about 10 minutes. This panel discussion will be moderated by Ms. Rahab Mundara, UN Habitat. Kindly come to the front. Other moderators are Commissioner Honorable Priscilla Nyokafi. Please come to the front. Mheshimiwa. We have Engineer Christine Ogut. Please come to the front, Engineer Christine Ogut. We have Engineer Michael Njoroge. Okay. We have Engineer Francis Getau. Please come to the front and take seats where the VIPs were seated for this panel discussion. Ms. Naomi Maura, please come to the front. Crystal Asige, please come to the front. And Ms. Susan Goodwill, if you're here, Ms. Susan Goodwill. And finally, Ezekiel Kuria from Isuzu. Ezekiel Kuria from Isuzu, please do come to the front and join the group of panelists. Moderators are Rahab Mundara and Honorable Priscilla Nyokafi. Please, we need to get started. It's going to be a very interactive session. Let me just go over it again. We have the moderators here being Ms. Rahab Mundara. Please take your seats, UN Habitat. We have Commissioner Honorable Priscilla Nyokafi. We have Engineer Christine Ogut, already seated, and Asante Engineer, thank you so much. We also have Francis Gitau, is seated. We have Hanel Lagrelias from the World Blind Union. Harness Laglarius, please, from the World Blind Union, kindly come to the front and take your seats. We have Mr. Mwangi, customized matatu operator. Mr. Mwangi. We need you at the front. Mwangi. Is Mwangi here? Then we have Ms. Susan Goodwill, Flood Initiative Trust. Please, Ms. Susan, take your seat. And Ms. Crystal Asige. Again, Rahab Mundara. Please take us through this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Betty. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be very, very brief because we feel after such an important occasion, it is not fair to send people home. So we want in a very, very short while to just give you a snippet of what is happening to respond to some of the needs that have been raised. I have talked with all my panelists ahead of this time and told them that they have 4 minutes each, just to highlight what the organizations are doing. And I will go in this order so that they psychologically prepare. I will begin with Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, followed by Naomi Mwaura, followed by Hannes, followed by Namata, and then Christine Ogut, Miss Crystal Asiga did not make it. She was here in the morning, but I think I had to go for other commitments. And then Ezekiel Kuria. Okay. Each of these persons have something in their heart that they are doing towards mobility. And as UN Habitat, we believe in getting some feedback after they have spoken. Unfortunately, we don't have the afternoon, but I'll give 3 minutes for a question or a feedback, and that will be the end of our session. I appreciate we've had very great morning, a very great launch, a very great procession, but it would be unfair if we just walked away. So we thought these experts can give us a snippet of what they are doing. And without wasting time, Honorable Njokabi, you have the floor. You have the liberty to tell people a bit more about yourself and your context, and then just address the issues. And very specifically, just to help us, what are some of the international, regional, and domestic laws that promote these rights that we are dealing with today? That would be a good space to begin at. Karibu.
Thank you so much. With 4 minutes, allow us to say all protocols observed so that we're able to proceed faster. But Cass, our chief guest, thank you very much for being here, and our members of parliament as well. I've spent a lot of time on human rights law, and so I serve now as a commissioner at the National Gender and Equality Commission, NGEC, and bring a background of law to the NGEC. I also served in parliament as the county woman member of parliament for Nyeri, and brought forward the national government affirmative action fund that also helps persons with disability and their groups across the country. On the international and domestic laws that speak to what we are doing today, one is Article 54 of our Constitution, the mother law or the supreme law of Kenya, that entitles persons with disability to dignity, to respect, in terms of how we address them and fighting stigmatization of persons with disability, allows them access to education institutions and facilities for persons with disability integrated into society, but also more importantly, with our Article 54, is the 5% progressive employment for persons with disability. At the NGEC, we see transport as a key enabler to employment. You cannot have employment of persons with disability for as long as transport systems are not working. Even if we say 5% progressive employment for persons with disability, transport and public transport for that matter becomes extremely important. And so we'll be seeking here that we see the link between access to education, access to employment, and transportation as enabling the two, education and employment. In education, we continue to follow some of the issues that are happening in the education sector, and particularly calling on the Higher Education Loans Board to have a reservation of funds for persons with disability who are in higher education institutions. And the same for TVET as well. TVET institutions should have support for persons with disability. But even as they go to the education institutions, then the question of transportation becomes important. Article 27 deals with freedom from discrimination, and disability is one of the grounds around which you cannot discriminate. This is a great innovation of our 2010 constitution, because the old constitution we had did not have disability as an outlawed ground for discrimination. The new constitution has that ground. We do have the human dignity, Article 28, and we have freedom of movement for every person in Article 39. Every person in our country has a right to freedom of movement. On the Persons with Disability Act of 2003, a lot of issues of accessibility and mobility are covered in Section 21 and Section 22 on public buildings. The only regret with this law is implementation, that the law has not been implemented. We are hoping that the bill that is before Parliament now will deal with issues of commencement. The 2003 Act had a lot of the sections postponed. Commencement was postponed. So if we write another law for persons with disability, let us not postpone commencement. It is here and now. And glad that our CEC here in Nairobi has said most of these things are already happening. Cars from the Ministry of Transport, most of these things are happening. They need to happen in all the counties. So any law that we now write on persons with disability should not have progressive implementation. It should have immediate implementation. And you need to support NGEC on that line. Immediate implementation. 5% employment, immediate. Access to public buildings, immediate. Access to public transportation, immediate. The persons with disability are already here with us. There is no need to postpone implementation of these laws. And Kenya has come of age in terms of that implementation. There are some offenses provided for in the laws for people who don't comply, and we hope that one of the things that we are going to do with the new laws, and which was our presentation with the Building Bridges initiative, is to link persons with disability provisions with budget. Any county that does not implement the provisions required by the Constitution on persons with disability should not have its budget approved by the National Assembly. That is the only way we are going to have implementation of these matters commence. If you are required to provide for access and mobility, and you do not provide for access and mobility as a public institution, then your budget will not be approved by the National Assembly until you comply with the provisions of the law as required. And join us, because we are seeking that in our next round of looking at the laws. International laws also cover, and Kenyan Constitution now, if we sign or ratify a convention, it applies here as part of our laws. So the UN Convention, CRPD, on the rights of persons with disability applies here, has a lot of provisions that we need to implement here on employment, on access, on mobility. Let me end with the protocol in Africa on the rights, the protocol to the human and people's rights on the rights of persons with disability in Africa. Sometimes, although we have the UN conventions, we have always felt it important to have these conventions domesticated in our African region and brought closer to us by our African heads of states and government. Our own president, you know, is very Pan-Africanist, believes in the power of Africa, in the power of Africa finding solutions to its own problems. And so we would recommend that the Protocol for African Persons with Disability is also adopted and made law here in our continent. And hoping that we don't become the old Kenyan situation where we pass very good laws which are not implemented. We pass good laws which are also implemented. Being a good politician, let me end with a good story at home in Nyeri, where persons with disability, before we got into this new mobility, somebody had said, washike chuma, si moto. Wakiingia kwa matatu, they don't want to give them this access to seats. Wanasema washike chuma, si moto. So the BRT bus for persons with disability. Hakuna kushika chuma.
Thank you very much. It is good to begin with a politician because they set the pace. The rest of my panelists, please be conscious that people are hungry, but by no means just run through what people need to hear. Naomi is a very good communicator, and I see she has PowerPoints. Very quickly, she's going to take us through what kind of designs do we need? What specifically are we asking the cities to do?
Okay. Thank you, Rehab. My name is Naomi Mora. I come from the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. We were the technical advisor in this project. So please forgive me if my presentation is a bit technical. And the reason why I've chosen a presentation is because I think, you know, pictures are worth 1,000 words, but I'll try and be very brief. So I'm going to look at the technical inclusive designs for walking and public transport, because walking provides the last mile connectivity in any journey. Even if you're in a personal car, you still have to walk into the office, right? Even if you're cycling, you still have to walk into where you're going. So our vision for inclusive design is seeing people with disability moving around our streets and our cities independently without being accompanied by any person. And when you look at our streets, they serve two main purposes. The next one, which they allow for vehicle movement and parking only. So those are the two purposes we have for our current streets in Nairobi. They do not provide, for example, for vending, next one, walking, cyclists, and they do not offer a place that you can go and meet your friends. Right. I've already said that. So streets should be inclusive. They should not give priority to personal cars, but take into consideration people who are using public transport, people who are cycling, people who are walking, and people even who are using light rail or tram. Right. So this is an example of Dar es Salaam. Next. Yeah, thank you. So as you can see, As you can see, the yellow line represents mass transit, that is the bus rapid transit. The other line that is not highlighted represents mixed traffic. Right, as you can see dala-dalas, boda-bodas are there, tuk-tuks are there. The one in light green represents the walking lane, so that is just supposed to be for people walking, and that's why you have bollards to keep off vehicles and also boda-bodas. And next on your extreme, which hand is this? Left. Yeah, you have the cycling lane. Right. So you can fit everybody who needs to use a road into the existing road. You do not actually need to expand it. Right. So I've already talked about that. But when you look at our current roads, you see that we still, as I said, give priority to personal cars. And then the drainage is supposed to act as the walkway, which does not actually work. And then so when we think of a street and a footpath, it should have 3 zones. It should have a pedestrian zone, which should be a minimum of 2 meters. And what that means is that 2 people can comfortably walk beside each other and have a conversation and actually not bump into each other, right? Because you, like in that other street, you have the awkward situation where, you know, if you're walking with someone, they would have to be either in front of you or, you know, behind you. We have the frontage lane. As you can see with the frontage lane, it puts a buffer between the pedestrian and what else is happening in the street, right? And then you have the furniture zone. That's where we should have trees and benches, especially trees. There's this new, I don't know if to call it new, but it seems that for every road we construct, the first thing we do is clear off the trees, which means that we don't have shade. And given our weather, we do actually need the trees. Yeah, next slide. Another issue I want to talk about is the use of bollards. They are very useful in terms of keeping off vehicles from encroaching on walkways, and also keeping off boda-bodas. But unfortunately, the width is what is the problem. The width should be around 99 millimeters to allow somebody with a wheelchair or a cyclist to actually pass without them getting off their bicycle. Another thing that we've seen in the city is, you know, as I talked about, there's need for a buffer. So a buffer between the pedestrian and what is happening in the street. But then we've put fences, which have actually increased the barriers that pedestrians face when trying to navigate the city. So this is a good example of a street. As you can see, there's a bench there. There's venting on that extreme right. There's furniture zone, and there's even space for parking. And it is physically separated from the walkway such that, you know, somebody with vehicle cannot get into the walkway. Right. So this is a classic example where parking, you know, people with personal cars encroach on walkways. Right. So this is another good example of a street. Please note how it's physically separated. Next one. The issue of footbridges. So this is on Thika Road. And as you can see here, the footbridge has actually been built on top of the cycling lane, right? And if you look at, is it easier for a car to go up, or is it easier for a person to go up, right? So in most of our streets, what we are doing, we are making people go up and actually, you know, continuing to give priority to personal cars by keeping them on the same level. And we did a study of somebody who's going to use the footpath versus somebody who walks across, and it takes a whole about 20 minutes to walk the footbridge versus the person who just runs across, right? And knowing ourselves as human, we want the shortest distance, right? So it's not surprising that people keep, for lack of a better word, playing catty with cars on our roads instead of using the footbridge. So the best practice, instead of using footbridge, go to the next slide, I think, yeah. So this is again in Dar es Salaam, where we have at-grade crossing. So that means that somebody who's on the walkway, which is as you can see from the bollards, is on the right, is at the same level with the pedestrian crossing. So if somebody is in a wheelchair, they don't, there's no barrier to them getting onto the footbridge, onto the pedestrian crossing. So we could have people who are on tricycles using cycling lane, but unfortunately our cycling lanes are not usable. As you can see, this is a newly constructed road. Can anybody guess which road? Yes. Right, so next slide. Yes, so as I mentioned, somebody with a tricycle can use the cycling lane, but right now they're present but not usable. And so when we talk about cycling lane, what features are we looking at? Next slide, yes. So we are looking at a minimum, again, of 2 meters, physically separated from mixed traffic, and smooth surface material that is free of obstacles and definitely litter. So intersection design, so this picture, it actually took this lady and her caregiver about 30 minutes to cross this road, right? So imagine if she's going to an interview, right? Just, hypothetically speaking. So that means as an able-bodied person, I'll probably give myself 2 hours to get to where I'm going because of Nairobi traffic, but she would probably have to give herself 1 more extra hour, right, to get to where she's going. And so again, best practice, looking at Barcelona, as I mentioned earlier, pedestrians are looking for the most direct crossing, and we should be looking at pedestrian desire lines. That means we look at, before we plan an intervention, we look at where are people crossing, right? And that's why we put the intervention, as opposed to saying this is where they should cross and forcing people to use that intervention. So we need to look at pedestrian desire lines. Lastly, I'm going to talk about public transport. As you are aware, Nairobi is planning about 100 kilometers of BRT network, the bus rapid transit, that will crisscross the 5 counties. And they'll be named after our big 5 animals. Next. So Mheshimiwa talked about the features of a BRT. The next one. So here we have pedestrian and cycling access. We have directed bus lanes, so that means that only the bus is allowed on that lane. We have prepaid payment with smart cards. We have clean mass transit vehicle, high capacity. And we have enclosed and secure stations, and this is just in Dar es Salaam, just next door. Next. So I think we've already seen a very good example of this intervention with the buses that we had today morning. And then inside the BRT station, there should be wide aisles that allow somebody in a wheelchair to maneuver themselves. Remember, our vision is that somebody with a disability should be able to move independent. And there are foldable chairs such that if somebody in a wheelchair comes, they can fold the chair to make space for them. And if there's nobody using it, then it can be priority seating for other vulnerable groups. So when we look at how to increase accessibility, the BRT bus should not have staircase, as you can see from the X there. It should have platform level boarding, right, where the station floor and the bus floor are aligned. Next, I think I have a better example. Yes, so this is in Dar es Salaam again. As you can see, you can almost not tell where the bus starts and where the station ends, right? And then when you talk about accessing the gate, so we have turnstiles, right? Because the BRT system, you're supposed to pay before you get in, right? And so we need to have accessible fare gates, because this turnstile on my left, somebody in a wheelchair cannot fit, and even if you have crutches, you still cannot be able to, move in and out of the station. Again, in Dar es Salaam, and now we are talking about how to access the station, and we have access ramps, and it's very important to get the gradient right, or else it will be too steep for somebody to move themselves into the station. So that's another example of a ramp in the Dar es Salaam BRT station. Next one. I've already talked about the at-grade crossing, the pedestrian crossing, and how they should be designed. Customer information. So how does somebody know where they're going, which dock to get their bus? So again, when we look at customer information, we should have visual displays of where the bus is going. For example, if you're going to Embakasi, then it will tell you, as you can see there, it will tell you to arrive in the next 1 minute, where to get it from, which of the docking stations to get it from, right? And in addition, there should be audio announcements inside the station and in the bus. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Those are the things you're expecting in Kenya. Our engineer will tell us shortly where we are with that. Yes. Yes, it's a dream coming true very, very soon. We have some global experiences and global partners. Let me invite Hannes. Please take 4 minutes, but speak very clearly to this audience what it is that you're doing. Kindly just give us a summary of where we can also plug in on the global practices in this whole agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel there is a great spirit in the room today, and also in the spirit of progress. And I just want to say first that as a person living with a visual impairment myself, I usually say that I have 1 disability but 99 abilities. So I just want to take one example. So I'm working for the World Blind Union, managing their new global program on accessibility in smart cities and urban development. Within this program, I am also working with the Global Compact on Inclusion and Accessibility in Cities. So I really recommend to read up on that. It's a global compact enabling cities, practitioners in accessibility and design, disability experts, and persons with disabilities to meet in shared spaces, to have a platform to take urban development forward from a disability and older person's perspective. Because it's important that we meet in a mutual network to find the solutions we need today and to progress for tomorrow. But how is this, and the Global Compact shortly can be signed by cities to enter into the global network, it's called a Community as Practice Network, where cities would join hands and define mutual challenges and find mutual solutions, also depending on the different contexts and scenarios where we are today, whether we are in Stockholm, Nairobi, or New York City. But how is this compact related to what has been discussed today and to the local context? First, I would like to say that usually we talk about all the challenges, but I want to just shortly outline a map for the solution, what we have seen in our experiences. It's about engaging persons with disabilities, older persons and children, because they are the target. We need to shape spaces where we can express our concerns, needs, and desires, and for that to influence decision makers. And I think that these discussions today has really been to capture the challenges and how we move forward. It's also about creating the space to develop tools and guides which we can actually use, which are expressed by the cities and discussed with the ones concerned, namely persons with disabilities and older persons. But it's also about creating or building onto the momentum we see now in the global movement for, as we see the rapid urbanization, we should really build on that momentum. I just want to take one example from my previous work in Nepal relating to the matatu industry here. And a few years ago, I was visiting an organization in southern Nepal, consisting of persons with visual impairment, because they encountered similar challenges as we have talked about today. That drivers, they sometimes ignore to stop as soon as they see you have a disability, and that you also face difficulties moving around in the actual bus, or that you're paying larger fees, or as a person representing persons with visual impairment, so many times we don't hear the audio, audio signs, or that the driver announces the next station. So there are so many times where people they don't get off the bus. So they continue and going and going and going if they don't know the route. And that is not an easy situation, because then sooner or later you end up, I have had that actual experience many times, you end up in situations you don't know how to handle, and you don't feel safe maybe in the new environment if you're not able to move around and walk around freely. But also on the subject of smart cities, which is one of my working areas today, I can proudly announce that we have been supporting a great initiative in New Zealand, in the city of Wellington. And this is really technological, but it's also the future. So using your smartphone and putting up information points all around the city will enable you, who are living, for example, with a visual impairment, to, as you walk along the street, you will get information in your phone, meaning also in your ears, talking to you like, now you're passing Nakumat, now you're passing the gasoline station. But sorry, the gasoline station is closed, but it opens 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So that's a great achievement, and I really think that that can be used to promote the independence and free mobility for persons with visual impairment, but also in the benefit of all other persons. And this can also be applied, for example, when you have the bus rapid, the BRT systems, that it will give you information in your phone or in a way that it's accessible to you and cater for your needs. For example, if I, for example, would be at the bus station, I would not be able to see which line the specific was we're going to be. If their signs are not big enough, or maybe the speaker system doesn't work, but in my phone it can say, no, you're at the wrong platform. This is bus number 2. You're going to bus number 3. But hey, I will give you the direction for this line. And for me, that creates a whole new world of opportunities where I can feel independent, I can feel strong, and I doesn't have to care about my one disability, that I can care about my 99 abilities. And I think so the future is really ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to be part of the discussion on how we can move accessibility practice in Nairobi and Kenya and onwards further. So I just want to make a final pledge, because I know that the time is short, but I would really pledge the city of Nairobi to be the first African city to sign the Global Compact on Inclusion and Accessible Cities. So I challenge you to lead the way forward for the continent and inspire the world. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a partner already saying, NGEC, I'm here. Can we work with the county and do something? And taking advantage of technology, digital technology. Last week I attended a workshop with very many young Kenyans who are already ready to go into that field of digital information. We have everything we need. Thank you very much. I come back home to my old friend, engineer Francis Gitau. And a lot has been said about the BRT. Many Nairobians are very skeptical about this project. We've listened to a lot of the things that have been said about the coming buses. Could you kindly just reassure this audience on 2 things? One, the timing of this baby we are waiting to birth. That's important for Kenyans. And then just confirm that what our Honorable Minister said is actually true as far as your technical details go. Kindly just address us. Take 3 minutes because you're not a politician. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Mudara has been our senior engineer for a long time. Thank you for that introduction. And I also want to appreciate the presence of our seniors, our honorable members of parliament who have supported these issues of policy direction. I just want to assure this audience there is an absolute paradigm shift in terms of public transportation issues. And the question of mass rapid transit system is an issue that even me, when I was coming to this space, had already tired me. I want to inform you that I was also a consumer of paratransit when I graduated from the University of Nairobi. I've used these matatus extensively in the city. The first study, the 1973 Nairobi Urban Mobility, there was a Nairobi Urban Plan that was done in the 70s by none other than Professor Gishaga, who is still at the University of Nairobi, had laid out all these issues. And when we came to 2006 Katahira study, talking, and the new plan, and then the harmonization study of 2014. Everybody is tired about the studies. I want also to assure you that us in the Ministry of Transport are tired with the studies. What the Cabinet Secretary, also through our Chief Administration Secretary, have put and impressed on us is action. You will see that Namata and the Transport Ministry has remained a bit quiet, not because they don't know what they want to do, but because they are busy preparing the urban mobility plan. If you look at the city, there is no city like the city of Nairobi without a calibrated travel demand model, whereby you are able to map all routes. It's just not about looking at digital matatus and seeing people talking about alternative routes that are not even mapped. We want to find out what is this trip demand within the city. We know the origins of trips. We know why we travel, mostly basically because we want to go to work, mostly basically because we want to go to school. We know we have a very substantive population that is PWD and vulnerable, and this is a very important design criteria. What you have seen done by ITDP, we have collaborated in developing the urban street manual. This manual, before it is actually issued by the minister, is going through stakeholder consultation processes. NGEC looks like one of our very close partners in this. We recognize that it is not about, we are not doing it for you because we are doing it for all of us. In fact, any public investment that does not include all of us is ineffective and it's not properly good investment. So when we're coming to this space, as Namata, we have 19 basic rules. I cannot read and talk about them. They are in the executive order. But one most important thing is we must first develop an urban mobility plan. Number two, we must work and coordinate effectively all agency action that is being done through the implementing agencies, be they the Kenya National Highway Authority, the Kenya Urban Roads Authority, all the investment plans that are in government that speak to public transportation. We are actually playing a coordinating role, and we are doing this through a program delivery unit that consists of membership of agency CEOs from Kenya Airports Authority, from Kenya National Highway Authority, Kenya Urban Roads Authority. The IG is also in this program delivery unit and is actually overseen by a steering committee at the level of principal secretaries, and there is no room for delegation. In fact, tomorrow we meet at 7 in the morning and we have a strict 1.5-hour meeting and we make decisions on the table. Bureaucracy is something we have thrown through the window, and soon you'll be seeing action. Now, question number one, timing. I want to inform this audience that we have already received a sample bus. This sample bus is already in this country. When this sample bus comes, we want all of us to interrogate its conformity to the very serious requirements that we have universal access, that it is giving provision to the people, whether the vulnerable people among us, and that is a high capacity bus that will ensure that we are transporting a large number of people, and this will bring in the sustainability aspect of effective utilization of public resources. Number two, it must be a safe bus. In fact, this bus, we expect it to have a stainless cage, a steel cage, because we do not want to see the infringement of passenger space, even in an accident. And it is expected to be a bus that serves a rapid transit system that will ensure that we save on travel time and also save the metropolitan area leakage of the gross domestic product of resources. Two things just want to mention very quickly, that we know we are a data hungry institution. There is a lot of fragmented data. I want to call all upon us, all of us, to share data and to work together and be proactive, not do it for invitation, but let us know that the matter exists. Let us all put our actions together so that we deliver this transformation as a team. And with broad consultations. Madam Modara, the other one was to confirm what the CAS said. Yes, our infrastructure will be high quality with universal access, and our rolling stock will be universal access. We want to start at a very high level. Our aging technology, propulsion technology will be Euro 5. We want also to address the issues of climate change, and we want to see that we have a sustainable environment. With those many remarks, sorry for infringing your 3 minutes. I would wish you had given me 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. There is hope. People, there is hope. NTSA had spoken during the opening remarks, but perhaps Christine wants to tell us what programs they have to address these road safety issues, because that's where you fall in. I think I'll give her a minute since she had taken 3, yeah? Let's see.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be as brief as possible, and we'll be looking at issues from a road safety perspective. One of the things I want to assure my colleague, Engineer Gitau here, is that NTSA is going to audit your designs to ensure that the needs of people with physical challenges or disabilities, children, all members of society are taken care of. How responsive are our designs? We will look at that. And something we need to think about is that the vulnerable road users, 60% of the accidents really, or fatalities, are the vulnerable road users. And out of that 60%, 38% are pedestrians. And as the lead agency, we are not only going to stop at looking at pedestrians, but we're also going to look at people who use wheelchairs, the blind, the deaf. And in our National Road Safety Action Plan, there is a special chapter dedicated to people with disabilities. And why are we doing this? If somebody is driving at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour and they knock a pedestrian, just a pedestrian, any speed beyond 30 kilometers per hour, the pedestrian will definitely die. Now, for somebody on a wheelchair, the chances of you dying are a third more than the person, a normal pedestrian. Now, if you are knocked at the speed of 80 kilometers per hour, that is the speed the matatus are driving at. What does that mean? The chances of you surviving are 5%. It means you're dead. And what am I saying? There is a time, there was a document that actually went to Parliament that was looking at issues of speed. And as an authority, we had recommended that the speed limits around the schools be reduced to 30 kilometers per hour. But this was shot down. So, honorable members, I am just appealing that the next time we bring the speed management policy, which is one of the targets we are looking at in the National Road Safety Action Plan, and request that at least the speed limits be lowered. These speed limits are being lowered to save lives of me and you, of everyone in this room. Because when an accident happens, it doesn't choose who it's going to affect. The other area the authority is working on is the issue of school transport regulations. And again, we had what the children, the message they gave. That will be considered, the speed zoning for the schools. Dash cam cameras are going to be introduced on the school transport, again, to enhance issues of safety. I talked earlier on about road safety audits. We are looking at the issue of lowering curbs, as was mentioned by the CEC for Transport for Nairobi, tactile features. We don't have those standards yet in our country or in our design manuals, but we are pushing the Ministry of Transport to actually look at those issues. We have a curriculum which I have here for training and testing of drivers and instructors. And there is, on page 189, we have training and testing of persons with disabilities. So that is already being addressed. This document is being sold at 855. It's readily available.
Please be brief.
Yeah. In terms of vehicles, the vehicle standards have been reviewed. We have this KS 372 2019, which is going through public participation. As we speak right now, there is a team in Nakuru, and tomorrow our team will be in Nyeri, and all the issues relating to boarding for people with wheelchairs, the spaces, the aisles, bell push bars, signage, all that has been considered. And the greatest thing about standards is that we will be holding the ones who are going to build those buses accountable for their action. Of course, there's the element of retrofitting of existing buses. Again, that has been addressed. That is all I would like to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good information. Many good things coming. Susan, kindly address us on the Flown Initiative so that people get to know some of what has been happening. We have one more important speaker, two more people, and that information is critical for you as an audience. People keep saying we don't have information, but this afternoon.
Thank you. My name is Susan Goodwillie. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all. In 2014, there was a lady who alighted from a matatu in a public stage. She had an altercation with the conductor and was surrounded by a group of men and stripped completely of her clothes. She was crying out for help. There was a crowd around her. People were videotaping this, and no one helped her. And this video went viral. This was after a string of similar incidences and led to a nationally known campaign called My Dress, My Choice. Public transportation around the world is extremely dangerous for women and other vulnerable groups. We've all heard this throughout the day, so I won't sort of go on and on, but as we know, when people are afraid to travel or when transportation is not accessible or welcoming to certain people, you don't use it. And that means that you don't work, or you don't go to school, or you don't see your friends. You live a life that is not fully your own or fully within your desires. The country misses out, economies miss out, but it is a violation of our basic human rights. So I think we believe what we're doing here today is extremely important, and we appreciate the initiatives. Flown Initiative exists to create safe, accessible, and sustainable public transportation for women and other vulnerable groups in Africa.